Okay.
This is my mom. And one of my best friends.
Thank you.
Mhm. What do you think of Trump?
Wow, that's a really you open up with a doozy.
Mhm.
Um, I think in many ways Trump is symptom of things that are going on in our country. I think that people give Trump a lot of credit for being the guy that has either brought negativity or has brought chaos or has brought corruption. I think in a way he's someone that we selected to unearth and to reveal a lot of the things that have been going on behind the scenes, and there's really no way for us to look away.
What would you say is going on behind the scenes?
I think that, so speaking as an immigrant, um, I think life in the United States is very comfortable. And I think that when you're comfortable, you lose some of your curiosity. And as long as you're okay, you're not particularly interested in what's going on in your politics, for example, because you feel like it doesn't affect you. And so when you ask me what's going on in the background, maybe I can't even tell you what's going on because I myself have not been particularly active or involved. I've very much been focused on my own personal life and making sure that I take care of my family. And as long as I'm okay, and as long as it's better than everything I've experienced before, right, I've had very little curiosity. And I think the last 4 years of Trump being in power has really uncovered uncovered the lack of empathy in our government, lack of knowledge, lack of.
What makes you say empathy?
I think that when you hear about policies that benefit people, like for example, having a universal healthcare, I can't even comprehend how that's something that anyone would oppose. Like, why would we oppose something that I consider to be a basic human right? Why should people who are not financially comfortable be not be able to afford healthcare for their children? And the fact that that's not something that we actively fight for the benefit of for the benefit of our citizens, the fact that we don't actively fight for our children being able to get good education, being able to get affordable higher education so that they can prepare for their future and really help make our country a better country. I mean, the more educated your youth is, the more educated people are in a country, the more advanced a country can be. And somehow there's a huge disconnect between a vision for a future of our country and the day-to-day government, I would say.
All right, before we dive into that, first I want to say, compared to where you grew up, what are your favorite parts of America?
Well, I think the very first thing is that I had an opportunity to get education here. So I was fortunate enough to come in 1977. And when I was ready to go to college, I was free to apply to any college I wanted to apply to. I was free to study any major that I wanted to study. And at that time, I was able to get financial aid. I was able to get scholarships.
Now, I want to pause for a second because I'm familiar with this, but for anyone who might be listening, what was your school situation when you were living in Czechoslovakia?
So I think we didn't really touch on the fact that I come from Czechoslovakia, and Czechoslovakia at that time was the Iron Curtain, one of the Iron Curtain countries, right? So it was a socialist country. And my father was an immigrant to the United States, and he was also considered a defector, right? And because he was in United States, when it came my turn to move beyond elementary education, I was denied that right to do that. I was not even allowed to apply, never mind to, go through a selection process and be denied application. I was not even allowed to apply. So, being someone who really enjoys studying and having been a straight A student, really the first 8 years, right, of my life, it was a great opportunity for me to come to the United States and be able to obtain higher education. So, just the fact that that opportunity was available for me, that I was able to get academic scholarships because I did well in school. I was able to get financial aid. and able really to kind of to build an independent life in this country. I really appreciate that. I appreciate the freedom of speech. You know, when you grow up in a country like former Czechoslovakia, the letters that my father would send us from the United States were cut open, they were read, and they were retaped, right? If he sent a tape, someone would listen to it to make sure. If we were making a phone call to the United States, there were people that were listening to the phone call. If you were speaking out in public, you had to be careful about what you were going to say because you never knew whether your neighbor was going to turn you in. So the ability to be able to ask questions, to have open discourse, to challenge, to protest, right? I definitely love that about the United States. And I do, in a large part, appreciate the opportunity that you can be an individual. Um, so Czechoslovakia was not like China, right? We did not wear uniforms. We didn't all have to dress alike. But there was still a mindset of people very much wanting to conform. And I appreciated very much when I came to the United States that everybody kind of did their own thing. So there was more freedom to kind of just breathe and be yourself.
When you were in school, because I feel like here being cool really means being yourself. Like you're going against, at least when I was growing up in school, you're going against the norm. Like fuck school, that's what's cool. So are you saying that what was cool when you were in school was to what toe the party line or
You
kind
mean
of
like when
blend?
I was still in
Yeah.
Czechoslovakia? I don't know that we thought of ourselves as being cool. There were very specific expectations, right? Being a good student was considered a very positive thing. There was, I don't remember being a nerd, right?
Hmm.
Dressing according to the code, behaving appropriately. It was really those kids that were on the fringes that were being seen as not belonging. So the same concept of coolness I think that you grew up with, I don't really remember that existing. Right? Fitting in was important, but fitting in meant that, yeah, you did toe the party line, right? You said the right things, you did the right things, you listened to authority, you did aim to be a pioneer and then a communist eventually. You didn't believe in God. Like those were things that were aligned with the party beliefs. But I don't like growing up in Czechoslovakia. I don't really remember the concept of cool.
Very good, very good. Oh, this actually brings a very interesting difference in schooling to mine. Can you give a quick run through of like the military drills you did when you were in school?
Yeah, so because of obviously Europe was smack in the middle of World War One, World War Two, we still did what we called civic exercises, and once or twice a year there would be a drill, and everyone was issued gas masks. We also took training for first aid, training on how to use a map. I mean, now that seems silly, right? Because you have iPhones
And
and
how old were you when you were doing that?
so I came to United States when I was 14. So even through elementary school, I mean, it was expectation that you would know how to respond, right? So someone would announce through a drill, there was a gas release. We're going to be evacuating. We're going to be marching in this direction. And then along the way, there was a combination of games and like fitness exercises, right? So you would have an obstacle course. You would evacuate your school with your everybody had to know how to put their gas masks on. You put on your gas mask, you put up the canister, right? You evacuated through the area that was contaminated, and then you would have an obstacle course. So it was a competition in fitness, and we would run and we would do pull-ups and we would shoot BB guns, right? And then you would get a piece of paper that would have a scenario written on it. So it would say this is your destination, and you would have to follow a map and a compass to be able to get to that destination. And on a destination, you would have challenges like, oh, your buddy just broke their leg. What are you going to do? And so now we would have an injured team member that we would have to know how to carry and how to apply first aid and so on and so forth. And then the entire exercise was a competition, right? So whoever arrived at the destination first would I don't even remember getting prizes, but there was certainly some pride in being able to be the first one. So it was a combination of building practical skills and turning it into a competition and a game for children.
Hmm. That's like that's so cool to hear in contrast to the way I grew up. because I know I constantly hear that I grew up in like a really coddled age of American kids, right? The helicopter parents, the everybody getting a trophy for sports. And when this comes from the idea of like fragile children and protecting them, it's cool to know that kids can practically be trusted to fire BB guns in school and not just fuck around, to know first aid, to handle these high stress things like we're going through a hazardous area, keep your gas mask on, be responsible. Like it's really interesting to know that a kid can be that.
I think the concept of helicopter parents is relatively new. Certainly, I grew up in a small village and children were engaged in day-to-day manual labor from early on. And it wasn't child labor, it was just a family trying to survive and everybody contributing in whatever way they were able to contribute. So having, a 10-year-old chopping wood was not an
Fuck, he's playing with an axe.
it- yeah. Well, when you had a coal stove inside the only room that all the people lived in, right? And it was hot, you had to learn how to identify danger and to avoid it rather than we didn't put padding around the stove and go, oh, we have a special room for the stove, and the rest of the room for the kids. We had animals, we had farm animals. So it was just a part of life. So no, I don't really relate to the concept of helicopter parents, and I don't relate to the concept. And it actually used to really bother me when you and Christian were little, and you guys would get participation trophies because I thought that really it doesn't really encourage competence, right? There's a reason for competition, and it's supposed to drive you to strive to be better, and it's an opportunity for you to test your skill and then see how you compare to others so that you can decide whether you want to improve that skill, if you want to continue along a certain path. And when you just get a trophy and recognition for showing up, what's the motivation to get better?
Hmm. What was your childhood like when you were? Can you give a quick rundown of when you were in Czechoslovakia?
Such a big question. What was my childhood like? My childhood was amazing. I grew up in a small village. So everybody knew everybody. We had a small farm, and again, in a socialistic country, you couldn't own a lot of private stuff, right? So, my grandparents were, I guess, peasants. So they had family land that they lost when communists took over, but everybody had just enough land in the village to be able to sustain themselves for self-sustenance. So we had a cow, we had, two pigs, we had chickens, whatever. We had big gardens.
What was your
But I,
daily life like?
so I don't know. Is that really interesting? Like what it was like? It depends. In a winter, my mom would get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, crack the ice in the buckets because we didn't have running water. Start the fire. We would all be under big feather comforters, waiting for it to get to get warm enough for us to get out of bed. If my mom worked, then I got up in the morning. I made breakfast for my brothers and sister, and then I would clean up after breakfast, make the beds, and then run to a bus and go to school, and then come home. Right. In a summer and in spring and summer, there was work in the garden. So as soon as we came home, everybody changed clothes and we were either planting things or we were weeding things or, we were working in the garden or we were picking fruits in the fall. We were making jams, we were making preserves. So it was I felt very free in that life. Like I think when you describe the physical activities of day to day, it feels like, oh, we were working, but it, I enjoyed it because it was a family working together. Everybody did what they had to do. And once the work was done, you were free. You could do whatever you wanted to do. So I grew up in a small house. The house only had two rooms and we only used one, right? So we had seven, let's see, how many? I can't count. My two brothers, my sister, my mom, and my grandparents. So that's seven people that lived in one room. And that one room was a kitchen, it was a living room, it was a dining room.
Why
It
didn't you
was,
use the other room?
well, first of all, it was because of energy and heat. Like you didn't want to have to burn stoves in two different rooms. But the real reason was my grandmother was keeping that for visitors so that when someone came to the house, we would have one room that was like nice and clean and always ready for visitors, and the other room we could live in.
Hmm. All right. So when you came to America, what was the transition like?
It was horrible. It was it was like coming from another world, right? I couldn't relate to American culture at all, not at all. Um, so we actually came at the beginning of a summer break. We came on June 6th, 1977. And so just, for your viewers or for your listeners, my father has been living in the United States for 9 years by himself, and my mom and my siblings lived in Czechoslovakia. And it took us 9 years to be able to actually immigrate to United States. So when people ask me, what was life like when I came to United States, what I really remember is just the difficulty of trying to create a family after my father has lived here and essentially has lived a single man's life. And suddenly, overnight, he had a family with two teenagers. I was 14, my brother was 13, my other brother was 10, and my sister was 9 years old. So,
Why did the immigration process take so long? For
because the Czechoslovak government would just deny us a visa to immigrate.
Was it out of, do you think, spite because Dietto left, or was it just for practical? Like we don't have enough planes at the moment, or
Oh God, no! It had nothing to do with being practical. So I guess you don't know a whole lot about Iron Curtain and why it was called the Iron Curtain. But people who lived in Eastern countries, you could only travel to other Eastern countries, right? You could not travel to the West. That way, you wouldn't get to see what Western life was like, right? The socialistic government was very much concerned about people seeing freedom in the West and seeing like economically how behind we were the Western countries. So the way you control people and you keep them ignorant is by preventing them from being able to travel. So that was one thing. And to immigrate legally from a country, it wasn't a matter of putting an application in and someone goes, "Oh, let me sign the paperwork," right? It literally every year, maybe one, maybe two families were allowed to immigrate. And we just happened to be lucky enough that, after 9 years of my father being in the United States, finally our application was approved. My mom, your grandmother, applied year after year after year after year, and she just wasn't willing to give up. It was not a matter of United States not giving us a visa to come here. It was a matter of the Czechoslovak government not wanting to release us.
why did it? Why do you think it released people at all? Right? Because it doesn't want people to go, so we let very few out. But why let them out at all? Do you think?
I actually don't know, but my guess would be so that West couldn't say that we were repressed, right? Because then you go, what do you mean we don't let people out? We let two people out last year, right? So I think it was purely for political reasons.
What did you think America was like before you left the Iron Curtain?
Oh my gosh. So the only people I ever met from United States was actually this old lady that came to United States in 1920s, and she did very well financially here, and she would periodically come and visit. And when she came, she would bring candy and she would bring chewing gum. Like chewing gum, Western chewing gum was a big deal. You could chew one gum for a week. And she would dress really nice, right? And she would just go on and on about how just how I don't know what's the word I'm looking for, but how rich life is in the United States and what the stores look like and what you can buy and what you can get. And certainly, like when we compared what we had and what she would have, we saw a big difference. And also, my father would, once or twice a year send us a really big care package, and so we would have American jeans and we would have like some American food and chocolate.
I can just imagine how pissed off the officers are that have to like let that in because they know like, oh fuck, they're gonna have this American propaganda, this amazing American things, but we have to sort of let them in to keep up the facade of being a good country. But it's like begrudgingly. It's such a strange position for a government to be in.
Well, I think when when socialism kind of like fell apart in Europe, I think it became evident that there it was just a huge facade of a system that didn't work, right? And so it was sustainable, like this pretense was sustainable for about 50 years, and then it just fell apart because you just couldn't sustain it. But when you ask me what I thought about the United States, my only, because we didn't see anything about the United States on TV. You didn't read anything, right? It was just those capitalists over there that I can't think of the word right now, but like take advantage of poor people and they don't pay them and blah 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 blah. And we were so lucky because we all were equal. It's not like in the United States and you had homelessness and you had people that were dying of hunger and we all were employed and we all had food to eat, right? So it was a combination of envy, right, of what America was materialistically from the gifts that my father would send us, and then just complete ignorance about the culture itself because there was just no way for us to have access to that information. So I had no idea what to expect. I just thought it was going to be like this fantasy where I would come to the United States and it would be just so incredibly rich and I would be like, oh, I've never seen anything like it. And I was so surprised when I got off the plane and it rained here the same way like it rained in our country. And there was dirt, where there was dirt, and there were poor people and there were, well-to-do people. So it was disappointing on one hand. And on the other hand, like going to a supermarket, like the first couple of months in the United States, it was like a trip. I was like, "You're going to supermarket? I want to go to supermarket. Like, I want to see shelves filled with food." That was amazing to see. I've never seen in my life that much meat. Like, I've never seen a meat section of a supermarket. I've never seen like fresh fruit available all the time. We would have like these small little stores that were like fruit stores. And at Christmas, oh my God, like your grandmother would have to get on a bus, go in a city, wait for oranges and banana delivery, stand outside, wait for the delivery to come in, then wait for the clerk inside to put aside stuff for her friends, and then whatever was left over, like your grandmother would come home from the city and have like two bananas and go, okay, like this Christmas we're gonna have two bananas and everyone has one orange. So from that perspective, it was amazing, but everything else was a little disappointing to me. I guess as a kid, I didn't know what to expect, and so you come here and go, "Wow, just same people like,
Mhm.
wherever I came from."
Hmm.
But I did think that Americans didn't know how to dress. That they were just like incredibly. I thought they were just Hello. They were incredibly just casual and sloppy dressers. Like, don't people know how to dress for church? Why are people coming to church in jeans, right? Or whenever we went somewhere for a visit, we would like get all dressed up and then get there and people are wearing sweatpants. Like that was unheard of, unheard of.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, that was. I was disappointed.
All right, so here it's a difficult transition. You're trying to figure out the language is different. So, okay, can you share a little bit about what life was like during your teenage years while you were transitioning?
I'd rather not.
All right,
Uh,
all right.
So I didn't speak English. None of us spoke English when we came to United States. And starting high school, not speaking a word of English and wearing clothes that were like 10 years behind fashion in the United States, right? Because all these good souls were trying to donate stuff to our family and they all gave us crap that they didn't want and now we had to wear it. So you just stand out in so many ways, just the way you look, you don't understand the language. We were in a school where the school was really not prepared to deal with students that did not speak the language, so they had no idea what to do with us. They sent us to a speech therapist, and I say they because my brother and I went to. It was a middle school and high school combined together, so he was in eighth grade, I was in ninth grade, um, and everyone was really trying to be helpful, but they just didn't know how, right? And it was very difficult from my perspective because people confuse someone not speaking a language with being ignorant. So whenever people would come to me and speak really loudly and enunciate like this, as if suddenly I would miraculously understand, it was embarrassing. It was humiliating. I remember the first 2 weeks of high school. I came home like in tears because I couldn't figure out where the bathroom was, and I had to pee so bad because I was holding it for a whole day. And then like one day I just got in a line in the lunchroom. I didn't know where the line was going. And I accidentally found my way to the toilet, you know. So that was such a relief. Um, but the other thing that was incredibly difficult is just culturally the way people relate to each other. Um, this constant smiling and exaggerated and hello and how are you, it was very strange for me. Like I didn't understand why people would come into my face and just go, hi, how you doing? Like it seemed very artificial and very unnatural to me, and I wasn't sure how to respond. And people would constantly say things like, why are you always so serious? Why aren't you smiling? And to me, like if something was funny, then I would laugh. But I saw no reason whatsoever to be walking around with a gigantic 2D smile on my face. So that was hard for me to relate to. And then really I kind of just like it was just so difficult to blend in that I just decided that I'm not gonna just think about it, and literally like I have 4 years of blank stuff.
Uh-huh.
It was just too hard. That's it. It was just too hard.
Mhm. All right. When did you feel like you were an American, if ever? Like when did you, I don't know, look around?
I honestly, I know exactly the day that I felt like an American. And it was 9/11. And I'm gonna get a little emotional, but it was the first time that I really felt in my heart that this is my country and my country was under attack. Um, and you never feel completely American, right? There is always a part of you that is somewhere else, and a part of you that's here. And for me, I've retained my accent, so people are constantly asking me where I'm from. But that day, and I remember it so clearly, it was that day that I just felt like my country was under attack.
There's a quote that goes something like, "We need to find a moral equivalent to war in today's culture, especially since things are so easy, generally speaking, for people to survive, compared to most of human history, right? Like our fridge, we almost always have food, and even if we didn't, there, I see old people that are homeless, and for me, that always, I'm sure their lifestyle is incredibly difficult in a million ways I can't imagine, but just to see that they can survive, right? That at least shows me that survival is much easier now than it was before. But the point I'm trying to get to is that it seems like to make us healthier, to help us prosper, we need some sort of challenge, something to connect us, like a moral equivalent to war. And I've heard that sports for some people has been that, but that doesn't seem to be quite enough. Um, I've also heard that America's biggest problem right now is that we don't have any serious problems. So we start to exaggerate the ones inside of our own country, and we start to stare at each other like we're the enemy. And this is all a theory I'm going off of. I don't know how true it actually is, but something about that rings true. Something about adding struggle to your life, a sort of fulfilling struggle.
My opinion is a little different from yours. I think, um, first of all, life is struggle, and no matter how comfortable your life is, life gives you plenty challenges and plenty opportunities to grow. I think what we are missing as Americans, as a country, as a nation, is a common vision, a common goal that we're working towards. I mean, one of the things that I brought with me from my socialistic background, right, are really these five year plans. And you hear that about China, right? Like China has short-term visions and long-term vision, and they have this 20-year vision that they're working towards. And I've always disliked the cycle of going from one election to another election to another election with empty promises, but no clear long-term vision that we can all align behind and put our efforts towards, right? Everybody's just kind of like pulling in their own direction, worrying about their own little space. And I think a common goal and a common vision is the thing that unites a country. And when you talk about people being kind to each other and people growing and having challenges, I'm 58 years old, and I can tell you life brings you enough challenges. Like you don't have to create artificial ones. And when big challenges come, the goodwill that you have built and the natural human empathy to be part of a larger group and tribe and help each other, that always comes to surface, right? And you can see that when you have these natural disasters around the United States, people are out there helping each other. And I think because they have a common goal, right? They're struggling through we see the struggle, but they really are working towards a common goal. How do we overcome this? How do we survive this? How do we get to the other side of that? And so, from my perspective, and what I do not like about the United States, and what I very much miss about being part of a smaller country and a smaller nation, is I feel like I have no one to align with behind a common goal and a common vision that would allow me to fulfill my higher purpose as a member of society, as a member of one nation, as truly being an American.
Hmm. That kind of confuses and maybe worries me because it was interesting to note that you said when 9/11 happened, that's when you felt like you were really an American. And when you say you want, like, you feel like you're lacking something to make you feel American again, I'm worried that it might end up being a catastrophe. And that's why I talk about creating.
I have to interrupt you. I don't feel less American. I would like to be able to use my energy to work towards making America a better country, a better nation. And I feel like I don't have anything really to tie into that resonates with me. So what 9/11 did for me is really kind of took a lid off of this transition that I've already been going through and I have gone through and I wasn't really even aware of, right? Because as an immigrant, as I said before, you always feel like part of you is here, part of you there. You're never quite American, and then you're no longer, Slovak or whatever. It was the emotion that I felt that made me realize that this is my land now. This is my homeland. This is my country. This is the country I want to defend, right? And I want to make better. Um, but I still don't feel like, um, as a citizen of the United States, I don't feel like I'm part of something bigger. I don't feel like I'm contributing and building a country. I feel like I am taking care of my family, taking care of myself, and all of my goals are very much they're focused on my immediate environment rather than on something bigger.
Do you want it to be focused? Also, let's pop the line. Do you want it to be focused on something bigger? Do you think that would be better? Like, I'm focused on my community, my family, but also my country as a whole, and maybe even the world. Like, do you think that is necessary for a good life?
For me, it would enrich my life, yes.
Hmm.
Hmm.
All right, before we continue,
Yeah.
oh, would you like to have any?
Yeah, okay.
Common goal, common vision. Hmm.
Hmm. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Life.
Like,
Hmm. Thank you all.
you're welcome, and thank you for doing this. I'm very happy it had to be you for the first one.
Well,
Mhm.
like I said, 10 years from now, we're going to look at this and we're gonna go, oh my God, that was so bad.
I'm sure we'll find room for improvement by the end, but so far, I like it. It's pretty good so far. But this is the first one, right?
Yeah,
A lot more
yeah.
practice to go and things like that.
I'm actually surprised how relaxed I am and how much I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, I'm surprised I'm not more tense. Well, with all the camera on.
Yeah. I thought I would be like much more nervous.
Mhm.
It's like, oh my God, what if I say something stupid? And I'm sure I will. I already may have.
Good so.
But I don't know. The moment you put the microphone in front of me, it just felt like a very natural medium for me.
Hmm. Maybe this will tie into some future mom career.
No.
Maybe we could have a leadership podcast.
Oh, okay, okay.
Hmm.
Leadership requires honesty.
End of podcast.
End of podcast. Stop lying. Stop
Oh,
talking
that'd
with
be
both
cool.
sides of
Now
your
I'm
mouth.
imagining you like talking to leaders from different companies or organizations, and maybe you guys discuss leadership principles or the culture in the companies you were working in. I don't know. That just popped in my head.
Hmm.
I'm not.
I don't know, but right now I'm just enjoying this and I'm enjoying this one-on-one time with you.
Me too. Hmm.
And I'm not sure whether it would be equally relaxing if I was talking to someone other than you because I feel so comfortable with you, and I feel like I can just be myself, right? I don't feel like I have to. And also I'm not using the right words. Let me use the multisyllabic words that I have learned just yesterday so I can impress you on the podcast, right?
Hmm.
Rather, it's just very relaxing and it's an exchange with my beloved son.
Very good. Wonderful. All right. One of your favorite memories for me and Christian being a kid.
That's actually really hard because I find, first of all, when you guys were kids, I just like drank up every moment. And it was probably the most that I was just in the moment and just loved it and I didn't want to be thinking about how do I remember this and how do I write this. I just wanted to enjoy it and I just wanted to live it. I just wanted to be great. Um, and this is not necessarily my favorite memory, but it's one what pops up in my mind when we lived in Sussex, you guys shared a room and you were both still in cribs. So there were like two cribs in a room, and every night I would come in and put you to sleep, and we would sing songs. And it was summer, it was like July, and I was running out of songs to sing. And I remember singing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and you and Alex standing up in the crib, holding onto the side of the crib, just singing Jingle Bells and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, you know. Um, so yeah, I just really, really, really loved spending time with you guys and playing with you and being with you. And I think the other thing that I remember that just kind of like sticks with me when we moved down here is swimming with you guys at night, like going to the pool at night and just swimming on our backs and holding our hands and looking up at the stars and just being there together.
Mm.
And I remember, oh my gosh, now that I remember, like when we moved here, I remember Christian saying that he wants to build a house for me, and you said that you're gonna paint pictures for the walls. So I think first of all, having you and Christian's like the best thing that ever happened to me, and I wanted to be a mom very much, and I truly, truly, truly enjoyed everything we did together. So just picking out one memory and saying that was the best one, and none of the other ones compared to it, just makes no sense to me at all. They were all amazing.
Hmm. That's perfect. Mm. Mm. It strikes me that like so often people are waiting for that vacation or that wonderful event, the concert, the this, the that, to really enjoy life. And yet, from what you're talking about, you're not talking about some huge moment. You're just talking about those little things that happen in life that are just so perfect.
I didn't want to miss a moment, and I did work right when you guys were small, and it made the time that I spent with you just that much more precious and enjoyable. And I just loved putting you guys to sleep and reading books together and singing and going for walks. And yeah, I just really couldn't pick one memory and say, oh, that was like the bestest ever. I'm sure like if we ever talked about it, I would just like start remembering things.
Mhm.
But just having kids is awesome. It's awesome. Everyone should have them.
All right, on that note, what's one of the toughest memories of being a mom?
Do we really want to talk about that on a podcast?
Yes,
Um,
not just the hunky dory.
yeah, you guys being teenagers, and I think I've shared this with you before. All of a sudden, I felt like I was the immigrant mom that had American teenagers, and I couldn't relate to you guys at all, and I was utterly unprepared. Even the theoretical things, that I learned, when I saw them in front of me, I didn't see them, and then when I did see them, I didn't know what to do about them. And I really tried not to look away. I tried to face things as they were happening, but they were all new and unpleasant and unexpected. And I
Spoken for you.
struggled. Yes, yeah. Yeah, that was very, very hard for me. I never even imagined, I really believed I did all the right things, right? And I just didn't understand why something like that would even enter our home. So yeah, you guys, kept me on my toes.
Introduced you to the
Yeah, yeah, to
medicine.
medicine.
Hmm. Medicine. Ooh, that leads into an interesting our ayahuasca experience.
Oh my gosh.
So me and mom this summer went to Mexico and we did an old shamanic medicine called ayahuasca.
Yeah,
And I don't even know specifically what I want to ask you about it. I guess I just want to talk about it for a little bit.
sure.
Um, and the fact that you've been so through my life like anti-drug. When I think of mom and dad, I think I think like no smoking weed. You guys never drink very much. You guys don't really smoke or anything like that. So when this came up, I could tell like a real shift was happening in your mind, or maybe it was I'm just seeing a part of you that I hadn't seen before. Because I know you're always into very spiritual practices and things along those lines. And to see you open up your mind to taking such a powerful medicine, a powerful drug, was really shocking and exciting for me.
But that's because you don't know that I have been reading about ayahuasca for years, literally for years. And I was always very fascinated by it. And the thing that really intrigued me was people reporting experiences of connecting to like a same source, right? And so when talking about ayahuasca, it wasn't like people talk about taking trips when they take drugs, recreational drugs. There was always a very deep emotional, I'm sorry, a very deep spiritual dimension to it that drew me to it.
Mm.
And so I read about the medicine itself. I read articles about people having the experience, and I was just at a point in my life where I wanted to search for something deeper spiritually. And you're the one that gave me the courage to do that. I mean, that's just a fact, right? I mean, you came from Puerto Rico and you were like, oh, mom, I read about this thing and I want to do it. And immediately I thought, here's my opportunity, because on my own, I wouldn't have the courage to do it.
Which is hilarious because the first time I took it, I was excited, like, oh yeah, this is good, this is gonna be fun, this is gonna be amazing, because I had done mushroom in the past, so I thought I knew like what a psychedelic was, and then that first night was
Yeah.
just pure stomach aches,
Pain.
cramps, pain. Like I was like, what the fuck? This is not what I expected.
Yeah.
I told you this, I considered not even doing it again, but oh, that second night where I had my crying and my screaming, not even on ayahuasca, just
Yeah.
something cracked open.
And so when we talk about ayahuasca, you really have to talk about it with reverence for the medicine that it is, because it is a medicine. And I think, when we think about our experience together and sharing it with 10 other individuals, right, we had in our group, you could see that every person had a very specific and very personal experience. And it's as if the medicine was working on a cellular level with each individual and giving them exactly what they needed.
Now, you said earlier that everyone's gonna struggle in life, and that I think that's really true. But with this specific experience, and I don't know if it was the struggle of ayahuasca specifically, but we became so close with this 10 group community. We became like
Yeah,
family in a week. And
yeah.
there's very little, if any, exaggeration in that. And I think a huge part is because we struggled together. We went through this deep experience together. And maybe it wasn't necessarily the struggle, but that's something I feel like I'm missing uh in my life to have that often. 'Cause I have you, I have Dad, I have Christian, and my friend group that I'm really close with. But even still, it feels like when it comes to community, something's missing, and maybe we should all just do ayahuasca.
So, we
Nah.
shouldn't have to do ayahuasca, but you look at that as the experience of struggling and being vulnerable that has brought us together. I look at it as there was a group of people that came in with a very similar intention, right? They wanted to seek a higher truth. They wanted to look deep inside themselves, and they were willing to be exposed and vulnerable and do whatever it takes to get to this next level.
Very true. The openness was
Yes, yes. And so when you say about people feeling close to each other, it was everyone's willingness to kind of like shed their facade, shed their mask, and just be vulnerable and open. It was almost like fuck it, right? This is why I'm here, and I've done this and I've done that, and I've struggled with this, and I almost killed, and you just heard about people's journeys.
Oh my
And
gosh, hold on 1 second.
yeah.
I have to, 'cause I forgot to do this in the start. Okay, sorry. That was the equivalent, in the film where they clack.
Uh-huh.
That's what I was doing. It'll help me sync the video and the sound.
Okay.
Sorry, what were we saying?
Now I'm lost. Now I have no idea what we were talking about because you clapped.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so just people being willing to share their deepest pain, their deepest vulnerability with a group of other people, and knowing that they were not going to be judged, that everyone was there because they had a problem, right? Everyone was there because there was a pain and an ache that they were trying to address and heal. So when you say that we became close because we struggled together, I felt part of it, yes, but what brought us together was a common intention, a common desire, to really like open up and to look deeper and to heal. And then we had just amazing facilitators that help us take that energy and that intention and create a common goal, I would say.
Real quick, what's the name? Bluestone?
Yes.
Shout out to Bluestone Ayahuasca.
Yeah, amazing.
Hmm.
Sharon,
Sharon, Sandra,
Ina, and
Email. Hmm.
Sandra. Yeah. If this is a journey that you are on, absolutely, just the most wonderful spiritual experience.
This is the first group of people I ever met where I felt like I was talking with shamans, like they were tapped into some other
Mhm.
intuitive and emotional level. It felt so like their charisma,
Yep.
the confidence, the peace they were able to put me at, and the validity to what they were saying. It wasn't just all this, but a con man sort of
Yeah.
charisma. No, it was so honest and helpful, and like they actually cared. It was
There was a perfect alignment between what they were feeling, what they were saying, and what they were doing. There was no misalignment between those, right? And so often when you think about someone being a con man, there is a dissonance, like something is not aligned, right? But when you spoke to Sandra, it was what's in her heart is what's in her mind, what comes out and is reflected in her actions. Like there is no difference between all of those, and I think that is really what inspired the tremendous trust from the group and certainly from us, right? And allowed yourself to be so vulnerable and open because you felt safe in that environment to explore, um, and yeah, move to another, allow yourself to move to another level through that process.
that place really opened my eyes that in at least where I live here, it doesn't seem to be very many places where you can have an open emotional expression. Like that one night, and I mean, that's reasonable in a society. You can't have people screaming and crying everywhere the way I was. But that wasn't just screaming and crying for being high. I want to specify that that was like a healing moment. There was a lot of pent up emotion that I hadn't dealt with, and it was kind of letting that out of me. And I didn't feel like I had a place. And maybe this was more internal blockage than some societal construct or some other thing I can't even put my finger on. I think a lot of it was internal. I had this idea in my head of like optimal me is closed off, emotionally stoic, cold, the coldness, and I don't feel the pain. I just move on. And there was something flawed in that to actually heal and to move past fucking up my leg and other things in my life. There was something very important about feeling,
Yeah.
yeah, about and expressing physically, like with all of your body, all your being, whatever that emotion is.
And I think it's really important to let your listeners also know that when you had that experience, that it was like pure raw emotion, pain that you have been carrying around for a long time. And I think we both knew that it was there, and that was one of the reasons that we were there. That actually did not happen during an ayahuasca ceremony. It happened like 24 hours after the ceremony and after we already sat in a circle and everyone shared their experience. And you had this dissonance between what you were telling the group and what you were saying your experience was about and what you felt in your heart, right, needed to be kind of dealt with. And I remember you just going off on your own, and you shared with me later that you started singing, and just singing a song actually opened you up, and suddenly you couldn't hold back this flood of rage and anger and just pain, right? Just sadness and pain, and it had to come out. And even as you were going through that experience, I think just having the ayahuasquera, right? That's who Sandra is, being there, guide you
Hmm.
through the process, giving name to your pain, giving a voice to your pain, and allowing you to face it and to release it. Um, it's even difficult to describe a moment like that unless you're there. And just so you know, like I felt like I saw you being born for a second time, like I was there both times, and that was powerful for me, and I'm very grateful that I got to be there and
Of
see
your
that.
christening.
Yes, it did. And remember, it started raining.
Oh my God,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Poetic.
So just, I mean, now I feel like we need to describe the scene of
Hmm.
what happened, because it was just such a powerful scene. Um,
All right, so the place we're staying at is right on the coast, and there's like a full moon out, and you can go out on the, I don't even know, the backyard essentially, and you see the ocean. It's right there. And I'm standing essentially at the end of the backyard, right by the sand, by the ocean, by the moon, and I'm singing, just looking off into the distance, all epically and dramatically. And the singing, something about it just unlocked feeling inside of me. Because here's a really cool side note that during this week, Sandra emphasized think with your emotional brain, not your rational brain, if you want this process to work, which really goes to, I keep hearing that American society is like we're hyper rational. We spend too much time in the thinking and the processing and maybe even the scientific process, which is hard to balance because science is incredibly important, this, that, and the other, but what happened that week wasn't done because it had been studied many times before and the university said it was okay and it didn't have a huge, very refined measuring system telling me that it would work. It was feeling, it was understanding emotionally what to do next, tuning into intuition that really helped at least me heal, and I'm pretty sure for you and everyone else there. So I was singing something that requires a lot of intuition and emotion. I was doing it very emotionally, and I start crying, and I just start having this huge emotional release, crying, screaming, and there was resistance inside of me while this was happening. There were parts of me that wanted to stop, like I'd done so many times in the past, and there were parts of me that were trying to tell me like what I should be thinking, should be feeling, and I essentially just kind of told those parts to shut the fuck up. I just want to let out whatever is honestly within me and just see myself and just see what is actually stirring in me. So this goes on, and while this is going on, I have a towel over my face so my screams aren't alarming everybody. And mom walks up, and
Yeah, and so I actually walked up to you twice, right? So the first time I came up to you, you once again, as you always do, wanted to take care of me first. So you came over to me and you gave me a hug, and you were like, you shooed me away. You said, I just need to be alone. So I left you alone, but then we ate dinner and you never came back inside. And then one of our friends came inside and said, Alex is out there crying. Is he okay? So I came out to you again, and you were rolling around on the ground, hitting the ground. I the best way I what I described, what I felt was like a wounded animal, right? And that's in the most respectful way that there was just such
Accurate.
raw pain, and it's a pain that you never allowed to come out, even as you were going through your amputation, as you were going through your rehabilitation. And so I always knew it was there. I kept waiting for it to come out, and you kept suppressing it. And so when I saw it being released with such violence, right, with such violent intensity, I wasn't sure how to help you. And so I tried to pray with you. I tried to lay my hand on you and just try to be there for you. But I couldn't soothe you. I couldn't calm you down. And Sandra came to me and said, first she wanted to take care of me, and I said, I'm okay, but I don't know how to help my son. And she said, do you think Alex would want me to help him? And I said, absolutely, he is open to, and I didn't ask you, I just assumed.
Kick her in the
Right.
face and
Then,
stuff.
um, but at this point, like he's on his fours and he's just hitting the ground. I'm on my fours and I have my hand on his I don't even know whether I had my hand on your back or on your leg or something, but I was just trying to maintain some sort of a physical contact with you. I just wanted to send my energy to you somehow. Um, and yeah, so then Sandra came and started talking to Alex, and then you go ahead and you finish that up because
What was I doing? So she took the towel off of my face
yeah.
and just gave me free space to scream and be belligerent, even though we're pretty far out in the country at this point, so it's really just the guests who are there for ayahuasca that would be bothering. And she just said, like, took the towel away and like, nope, just let it out. So I'm screaming, I'm screaming, I'm screaming, I'm screaming, I'm screaming, I'm screaming. And eventually she says, don't damage your voice if you're not going to give it like words, if you're not going to
If you
uh,
not give your emotion a name, right? Like you have to say what you have to give it a name. Whatever it is that you're feeling, you have to give it a name.
which is a really helpful and strange tidbit. I'm still not sure exactly why that helped, but it did. And so I'm screaming out certain words that connected at the time to what I was feeling. And a little strange side note is that while this is going on, there was a part of me that was cold and disconnected, right? There was that part of me that maybe I let uh, dominate me, drive me, that was at the forefront of controlling me in the past. And this part was just analyzing in a really cold way, maybe making cold jokes that I didn't find funny, but it was still there with a cold sort of
You mean like you were just
humor.
observing yourself, like it's as if you were outside of your body watching this situation happening?
Sort of, yeah. There was like two parts. There was that part, and then there was the part that just wanted to tune into the pain. And even still, when I was screaming and whatnot, there was a little part of me that wanted to reserve what I was saying and not just say everything. And there's still some inner healing I have to do regarding those restrictions about being afraid of sharing things with people. But anywho, so I'm screaming. She helps me give my voice direction. It's kind of blurry at that point. I remember people's hands might have been on my back.
So while this is going on, people have come out of the house and they were really just surrounding us. Like they were very respectful of the space, but they wanted you to know that they're there for you and that they were there for me. And I remember one of the ladies just sitting next to me, and it was just so incredibly healing and helpful. And as Sandra was talking to you, she kept saying things like, what are you feeling? Who are you angry at? If you're angry at God, just say that. If you and she was really trying to get you to articulate what your feelings were. And then she called Eno and she said, there's gonna be someone in front of you, right? Look at that person and talk to him. It's you being reflected. So she actually used Eno to be in front of you and talk you kind of through it and explain to you that you are reflected in his eyes. Talk to yourself. She invited you to talk to your own soul and tell it what you need to tell it. And it's then when you started, it's almost like you started calming down a little bit once you gave your feelings and your emotions a name. Once you were able to say out loud in words, not just in sounds, but in words, what was weighing so heavily on you and what you were feeling, and standing in front of you, kind of reflecting yourself back to you, allowed you to really release things and calm down, and you had a smile on your face.
Oh,
And
I want to jump in. So Eno's in front of me, and so much of it, she just said, "Look at him." And what
yes,
you see in his eyes, it's you reflected back at you. So it was essentially just looking at him, and I could feel at times sadness or anger, and I kept looking, I kept looking, I kept looking. There's, by the way, a beautiful full moon behind him,
yes,
reflecting
it
off the
was
moon.
magical.
Yeah. And so my eyes dart up to that, but something that really struck me is that that wasn't nearly as beautiful and as like I was much more easily absorbed into his eyes when I looked. And I look and then it just sort of feels infinite, infinite. Like I'm just looking into this endless abyss, but it was peaceful and then spontaneously, a huge smile just spreads on my face.
Yep.
And his too, and we kind of just start laughing to each other. And I think that was like pretty much it. San's just like rubbing my back. She's like, spread your wings, uh, warrior of love or warrior of light or something. And something about being reborn. And
And I remember just like moving because I was behind you, um, and I moved to the side of you. So Sandra was on one side, Ina was in front of you, and I was on the other side. And as I sat there, I just thought, oh my God, I'm watching my son being reborn. I felt it. And then once you were once you were calm, everybody just left, and it was just you and me. And it started raining, and we were laying on the grass, and the rain was just blessing us and baptizing us. It was a powerful, powerful moment. Frankly, like after that, I just thought, why am I here? I'm ready to go home. Like there's nothing else to learn here.
and yet, damn, we still did.
Yeah, yeah.
That's great.
It was a powerful spiritual experience, and I'm really grateful that I had an opportunity to share that with you.
I'd love to see them
Very
move to
cool.
America. Me too. Oh my God, yeah. To do that with you too, that was
Yeah,
super cool.
it was beyond cool.
Yeah.
Come on, like cool does not really capture what it was. It was spectacularly spiritual, um,
Mhm.
and powerful, and just really powerful. And as we went through that experience, because I don't think we have enough time on a podcast to talk about the entire experience, but as we were going through that experience, and it was um it was very enlightening for me to watch you just be you and be a man, and knowing that you have so much to give to the world, because truly every person that met you there and every person that meets you just sees the light in you and sees the light in your eyes, and I felt like that was the first step of your journey of sharing your light with the world, and I got to witness it, so thank you for that. I don't know, do we have anything else to say on this podcast? Because I'm thinking that's a really nice ending to
Yeah.
our conversation tonight, unless you had something else. I feel like everything after this would be very anticlimactic.
Would be a good note. What's one ridiculous story you have of me or of Christian?
Share those.
Go for it, Mom. Well, this is for the fans. All right, I don't want to out Christian without his consent, so this is for me.
Oh my God, I don't want to like be gross.
Go for it.
Okay, so let's just say that when you were little, aside from doing every stupid thing that I could imagine, and like 2.5 seconds later you were doing it, um,
Your mom had a sixth sense for when I would do
oh
ridiculous shit.
my goodness, like literally split second before he did it, I saw it happening. So I saw him jumping into a blow up pool upside down, and like, within a split second, his feet were up and his head was in the pool, and I was pulling him out. I saw him walking towards my husband's car, and I was like, oh, this is no
Oh,
way.
we have to rewind. So mom's doing some walking. excuse me, heading kind of beelining it right towards my dad's beautiful new BMW, and my
So
dad
so
loves
you were not you were initially I'm washing the tractor and you're just like walking as if nothing was happening, and then you pick up a pebble and you keep walking at a leisurely pace, and I see the car in the garage, I see the garage door open, and I see you with the pebble. I'm going, no. And I think you must have sensed me realizing what's going on, and that's when you started running. And I'm running after you, and you took the pebble and you just went along the length of the entire car. And I was like, oh my God, he's gonna kill him. Like, I really thought your father was going to kill you after that. I had to protect you with my body. So yeah, there's few of those like that. Like the day that you decided you're gonna take a red magic marker, and when you were done drawing on a paper, you'll go on the carpet and then up a wall and then on the furniture and around the entire room and then up the stairs in a brand new house, red magic marker on the wall. Just so you know, you can't get that off the wall. Like once it's on there, that's I was like, oh my God, like why would this child do
They're
this?
so special. They're so expressive and creative.
Yeah. Yeah. So you were a special child. You were special right from the beginning. Yeah.
Indeed. Uh,
And you continue to be such.
Thank you.
So
This is nice, short, and sweet.
thank you for this opportunity. This was actually tremendous fun. And I do hope not only that we have a chance to do it again, but also that you may actually be able to use this in your professional endeavor. So tremendous fun. Thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to speak to you.
Current podcast. We out.
Thank you.